Okay, so it's been it's been several days since I recorded something, and I do notice my subscriber count goes up or down. Lost a couple of folks probably because I just wasn't putting out anything, or maybe who knows, it's something I said. Um, something that you do kind of have cross your mind when you got a YouTube channel, and you just kind of maybe you're sort of asking that question of why this goes up or down, why people subscribe, why they unsubscribe, but another question for another day. But anyways, I have not relapsed. I would say that I've kind of been in a bit of a weak state, but I've found ways to pull through. I'm trying to just sort of undo any sort of effects of any sort of backsliding that would lead to a relapse. But it's day 29, so tomorrow should be a month. And I'm having to record this on my old camcorder, so I'm not really sure about the quality of the video. I usually end up recording on my iPhone, but I did something kind of dumb or just like absent-minded, but I left my charger at work. Hopefully it's still there, plugged into the the charge port, plugged into the socket that I left it at when I go back day after tomorrow. But just trying to conserve power on my phone, the percentage of power that I still have, because I need to have an alarm set. I kind of had a bit of a flub up on Saturday because I somehow convinced myself that it was already like Saturday the day before, and it was actually Friday, and I was late by a couple hours, but it wasn't like a huge deal. Obviously, I don't want to repeat that, but then I went and I left my charger at work, like I just said, not to repeat myself too many times, but that's why I'm using my camcorder, and I got some power charged onto from my laptop, so hopefully it's charged up enough that I can get through this vlog. But now what I want to talk about, couple things. One thing is that the backsliding which has occurred, it's not. See, I've made it a point always, when I'm on this, when I'm not obviously relapsing, I make it a point to stay away from any sort of audio visual content. I haven't gone onto any pornography websites. I haven't gone looking for things like that. But the stuff that ends up happening is like it's stuff on YouTube where it's like like I've talked about this in the past, binaural beats or stuff that it's like promises you, oh, listen to this while you're falling asleep, and you'll have some basically like a nocturnal emission or so. And um, even then, I still make it a point to stay away from anything that has any sort of like real like content to it. But it's weird because not only, I mean, obviously, like I said, it's backsliding, but really it's one thing that kind of crossed my mind this last time was wow, it was that, like, I guess sort of the way people will think that they can sort of make it work. The few times it has worked in a sense was like, it was almost like I was already going to have a nocturnal emission. I'd gone through so much in Nofap that it was sort of like it was going to happen naturally. So I don't even know if it was really the content. I think the one that I listened to when that did work was, it was literally just a recording of like water flowing, and just like some beats. It wasn't any sort of like audio recording that could be mistaken as, or could actually be from some pornographic material. But anyways, I kind of thought to myself, like, like I think a lot of guys, when they're maybe it's significantly less in this generation, but you think about the concept of like your formative quote unquote sexual experience. How like maybe a generation or two ago, by the time, and I know I've talked about this before, but by the time someone was like my age, they probably would have already been married, had a kid or two, or maybe even three, well into their career, a married man, and they would have already obviously had sex already, and they would have had their formative sexual experience by that point. And as I was kind of like laying there with that sort of stuff on and trying to sort of, I guess you could say, fantasize of a sort, it was kind of like I couldn't actually fantasize about, like some experience that I had actually had. Sure, I've kissed girls, I've had a couple of girlfriends, done that sort of stuff, and obviously I'm attracted to women. No, argument there. But it was like because I'd never actually had, sexual relations. It was like the only things I could pull up were images from porn that I've watched, and it was kind of like I think that's kind of when I got to the point where I was just like I turned it off because it was like realizing like not only so much of what is the point of Nofap for me, but also just how it sort of reinforces that to be engaging in anything that would lead you towards pornography, lead you towards PMO, lead you towards relapsing, and also just sort of like how it sort of ends up reflecting back on sort of the sad state of affairs for myself in terms of like my relation to the women I've been attracted to in real life, where it's like it's never really led to anything real, substantial, or foundational. And it's like so much of why I've stuck with NoFap for this long, why I've continually gone back to it, why I've continually returned to it, even after some really bad relapses, even after some really bad binging in my life. It's like I keep on returning to it because in a lot of ways I'm trying to break out of this sort of like back and forth of extremes, obsession with or obsession against, sex, sexuality, sexual relations, all that kind of stuff where it's like, I'll say like I'm tired of this, I'm tired of this cycle. And it's so much of why like I want to break out of it because, like I said, you try and fantasize about anything and it's like if you haven't actually had actual sexual activity in your past, you don't have actual sexual memories of like, being with some woman who you desired, that sort of thing. Like, what does that really say about you and where you're at in life and your development, That people have, this term like rites of passage, or they have this idea of like becoming a man or, being a man, that sort of thing. And it's like, I think back to that scene in Fight Club where it's like, the guy, the narrator, in reality, he's, spoiler alert, but he's talking to himself essentially, his like alter ego. But he's talking about different milestones in his life and how he would call up his dad, who wasn't really in his life because his parents were divorced, and trying to get guidance on what to do with his life. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, son, it's time for you to get married. And he's like, I can't get married. I'm a 30-year-old boy. And in a lot of ways, it seems like these last few years, especially after I graduated from college, it was like, it was like, it is like, it's been like, it continues to be like, how should I put it, like, me moving into and actually starting to truly like become a man. And first off, getting that first real job. Second off, let me see, starting to actually pay my bills with money that I had earned, not money that I had borrowed. And paying off my debts, getting my finances right, learning about all of that stuff, how debt works, how money works, how your debt to income ratio is, why debt is bad, why you need to pay it off, what it means to sign on the dotted line for a loan, how to get out of debt, how to build wealth, saving money, all that kind of stuff, taxes and all that, how that all works. And learning that kind of stuff, part of being an adult. What else? Heck, getting fired from a job for the first time. And what I mean by fired, I don't mean like, some crummy like, quote unquote crap job that you have because all you needed some cash, but an actual like job in the industry that you've been wanting to get into, and losing your job in that industry, having that experience. And it's kind of like, okay, what's the next step? What's the next thing? And so much to me about NoFap for myself. And again, I'm hoping I can get through this video because, it looks like the power's going down, but so much of Nofap for me has been about moving out of that adolescence, obsessing over something and then actually like confronting the reality of it and experiencing the reality of it. And it's the same sort of mentality with a lot of this, what I call outrage porn or outrage bait that you see when it comes to politics and cultural issues, where it's just like it's the same process of just like getting all riled up, getting aroused in a sense about this thing, getting off about it, and then not doing anything about it. And sort of pivoting from that, I remember talking to, this kind of may seem a bit weird to sort of pivot into this, include this in the topic, but, I was talking, again, I finally was able to get in touch with my grandma again, and, we kind of talked about a bit about the family history towards the end of the conversation, because I was asking about, like, if she had any old photos of my grandpa, especially, back during World War II, and she apparently still has the original. I guess that what I had was a copy, which I'm glad that it was just a copy, that it wasn't the original, but her and I got into talking about the family history, and like one of my, he wasn't a direct ancestor, but he was like the first or second cousin of my great great grandfather. He was the first person of the family to come over here from Germany, and served in the Civil War, was involved in politics and all that, and he fought for the Union and all that. Really believed in that cause, different aspects of it. But the thing that I got from talking about him and having read about him and looked him up, and then the other members of the family, other members of the family from that time, was that for them it was like they didn't sit around and complain about things. They got up and they did something about it. They saw some injustice, or they saw some sort of problem, or they had concerns about things, or this or that, whether it was their own personal finances, whether it was their education, whether it was the state of affairs in their family or their community or their nation, their state, their nation, etc. They got involved, and because of that, I think they, a lot of ways, it almost seems like they were less angry, less anxious, less stressed out, less, sort of bent out of shape about a lot of stuff in life. And I get this sort of sense from certain other people I communicate with, that it's almost like it's the exact opposite of that. And a lot about Nofap for me is basically getting off your butt and actually doing something about the problems in your life, as opposed to just sitting there and being all anxious and obsessed and frustrated and whatnot. And I've had some other conversations recently that touch off on different topics, which feeds into this sort of understanding, but I don't want to really get into those topics until much later on, if I ever talk about them, because it's not just that the topics are controversial. It's just like, I don't think really the issue is the topics themselves. It's almost like talking with people who, like I said, it's a difference between the people who are actively involved in whatever is going on in the world versus those who are passively sitting there freaking out at every, bump that goes off in the night, or every, little issue that comes up. And people who like want to feel like their world is under control by trying to like place controls upon you. And it's not even about politicians or business leaders. It can be just individuals in your life. And I, on the other hand, like, I'm looking at things like, okay, let's figure out an action plan for this issue or that issue in our lives, and let's implement it, and we'll carry on with life, whether it's with relation to PMO or it's other things in life. It's like, okay, here's an action plan, let's carry it out, let's be rational and logical about it. And it's kind of funny thinking about this and talking about this, because I'll talk with someone from my grandparents' generation, my grandma, and it's like, I don't know if it's like what she had to go through growing up, and then even though she didn't literally fight in the war, but she had an older brother who fought in the war, And, there's very much that sort of like, we don't know how this is going to end. We don't know if this, if your brother's going to come back, if he's going to come back, alive, but physically, mentally broken, etc., etc., and we don't know how this war is going to work out, etc. Something about going through all that and coming out of that, and when I say coming out of that, I mean like, surviving it intact. It's almost like it seems like it's given her and a lot of other people in that generation a lot more mental fortitude, whereas when I talk with my parents, it's more like the opposite. Like, something goes wrong and like, you know, they can't really react to it. And then, I'm kind of like, I've been somewhere like in between those two, where it's like there have been enough times where I've freaked out and kind of lost my mind or so, and then other times where I've been cool, calm, and collected. And as time goes on, I try and move myself more and more towards being cool, calm, and collected, being stoic, having a grip on things. Like last year, it was kind of ironic because I remember sitting in this like one-on-one meeting with my supervisor at the time, and he made this comment that you seem to be holding it together really well through all this, the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. I'm getting really stir crazy, and a lot of folks around here, they're getting stir crazy, they're getting concerned and scared, and I'm just kind of like, I'm like zeroed in on, one mind, one yeah, like a single-minded focus, and on like, okay, getting to work, making that money, paying these bills, taking care of myself, like not getting freaked out about not being able to go out and have fun, or what's going to happen the next day, or if this is going to happen or that's going to happen. Like I don't know if I was just prepared for it because I've gone through similar experiences in the past with like, even if it didn't happen to me directly, just family medical emergencies and things of that nature. It's almost like it prepared me for like, okay, nothing is stable, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is for sure. Things can go boom at any moment, and you just have to sort of somehow be able to hold to it. Maybe it's the experience I had in college, maybe it's Nofap, I don't know, maybe it's all these different factors, but it was kind of ironic and interesting to hear that from him, that he said, oh, you seem to be holding together and, not losing it, with all the stuff that's going on. And I tried to sort of take that lesson from that experience and sort of carry on with it, And, I mean, in the next few months, I'd be maybe making some major sort of decisions with regard to certain medical matters and all that, especially as my finances stabilize even further. Um, and, I probably should do some video on the whole Journey Out of Debt series because I've made some major progress in that. But as those things start to stabilize and some changes which are coming on the pipeline take place, I'm probably going to make some significant, medical related, decisions. But, right now I'm just kind of keeping on with my sort of process and working towards things and taking care of this and taking care of that as best I can. As stuff has gone on and occurred, because I think that's kind of like just the best you can do, and I think maybe because of what I've been through and what I've had to overcome and all the things that I've seen, and the stuff that stuff that was going on 5 years ago that is now sort of showing up in the lives of other people who wanted to sort of deny what I was talking about, and I've kind of become desensitized to certain things. It's like I really just, and I know, again, I myself have at times fallen victim to it, so it's like not like I'm 100% immune to it, but I just kind of hate that sort of mentality, which is just like, it's debilitating, where it's just like living every life, or living every day in your life as if, you have to sort of like live in fear and making all your decisions based off of fear. And I'm not saying like, don't be concerned, don't be ready, don't be rational, don't have a plan, don't have a backup plan, don't have a, don't take precautions or whatever. You definitely take precautions, especially in the chaotic world we seem to be living in these days. But I just hate that debilitating mentality of like living in fear and all this, like doing everything like based off of that. And, it's like, Like if I was in the middle of the mountains or the middle of the woods, like I would be out there so that I wouldn't have to be in fear of certain things. And it's not like I wouldn't take precautions. Like no duh, you don't go out there and be dumb with things. You take care of stuff. But I kind of use that sort of an image of like, okay, you're way out here in the middle of nowhere. Like, you shouldn't have to be concerned about certain things because you're in a different environment. Like if you're in the city, you're way packed in with a whole bunch of people like on top of each other. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to take a different set of precautions. It's kind of like that. Um, if you're out in the middle of the woods, you're in a log cabin, different set of circumstances. You kind of adapt to your scenarios, but it's sort of like maybe it's just the fact that I want to kind of envision a way out of all this, a way forward, into sort of a brighter future, and I keep trying to dream of that and work towards that as opposed to getting stuck in what might be the crummy present. And like I said, to repeat myself again, I hate that debilitating mindset, which I feel is very anti-Nofap. It's anti any sort of positivity or working forward towards some sort of brighter future for ourselves as individuals, or, broader than that, wherein you're always like going from one fear, one freak out to the next, and you're always making decisions assuming that you'll never get out of this state. That you're going to get stuck in this dark tunnel and it's just going to go on forever. Whereas it's not guaranteed to. It's kind of like with debt. You do things the right way, you can get out of debt, and you can stay out of debt, and you can build wealth. Same thing with a lot of other issues in life. I mean, I at least want to hope that you can. That it is possible that one day I could wake up, let's say, and be debt free and have money in the bank and not have to be looking at it going, oh, I got to pay all these bills. Like, oh, what bills? Well, okay, you got to pay for rent or you got to pay for gas. The basics of life, not all these extra expenses. And, as such, like, I try to live my life, having precautions, whether it's personal hygiene or it's my schedule or it's, making sure I get enough sleep or it's, whatever food I'm eating or, what you know, what I do in terms of exercise or whatever the case may be, to sort of like, okay, I've done my due diligence, I've taken my responsibilities, and if I've got to get certain medical treatments in the future for different things, or God forbid I got to get surgery for something, or, some sort of treatment, like I'll go and get those things, but, I'm not going to go about in this world, in this life, thinking that either everything and everyone's out to get me, that there's some disaster waiting around the corner, but also I'm not going to be going around the world thinking that it's all 100% safe. Like I oftentimes wonder if, so much of the past year was about people being caught with their pants down, so to speak, and maybe to a certain extent that was kind of like my case, in some ways, but I've tried to take from that experience, whether it's with regards to Nofap or it's other aspects of life, to like be vigilant, to take responsibility for my life and my decisions and my health and so on. And like I said, the next few months I'll be maybe making some major decisions with regards to that. But for right now, it's me keeping on with Nofap, with making that money, paying off those bills, doing my due diligence to take care of my health. Like I've been working on this diet, losing weight. I've lost about 6.5 pounds so far. Moving back towards being in the healthy BMI. Just trying to eat healthy, get plenty of water to drink, etc. And doing what's necessary for me to have done my due diligence on my side of the equation. And working towards my goals and trying to get different milestones knocked down and whatnot so that I can be in a much better position should something happen. Because there's always that possibility of something happening to you, but you should, at least in my opinion, figure out what you gotta do to be prepared for that, whether that's financially, educationally, health-wise, whatnot, and just take responsibility for your life and do your due diligence, because I think another dangerous thing I've seen, this could just be my perspective, and I'll try and end this video on this because I think I've kind of gone on long enough, but I think there's sort of been a dangerous mentality amongst a lot of folks, and I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of had it myself, was that, this whole sort of like, belief in, or this hope that there'd be someone who would come along and save you from the consequences of your actions, the consequences of your decisions in life, and then sort of realizing how much so many other people, whether they're in power or they're just folks on a day-to-day basis, are just kind of like out for themselves, ruthlessly out for themselves, and just willing to do whatever they got to do to get that next, whatever it is that they're after, even if it means, railroading you or throwing you under the bus, and I think a lot of the fear and the anxiety is also the fact, the result of people having made decisions in their lives that led them to being so vulnerable that it's kind of like they would need a hero to come in and save them because things are just that far out of whack. And as I struggle and move forward, I'm trying to make sure that I don't end up like that. And, that is, to bring it back to Nofap, that is a large part of Nofap for me. So, anyways, hopefully I'm not coming off as like arrogant or something like that, but, because I'm still a work in progress. But anyways, before the power runs out on this, I'm going to finish up recording. And yes, I am wearing my beanie, so that's why you can't, I guess see the top of my head unless I lean forward. But anyways, it's day 29, Nofap. Tomorrow will be a month, so I can do like a month, month in review sort of video. But yeah, that's it for now, and I'll hopefully see you folks around. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.